Well, hey, Liberty Church London. Man, it is amazing to be here. Carrie and I we got in on Friday, and we have just been spending time and hanging out and visiting all the stuff and eating all of the stuff that you have going on here. We love being a part of this global family. We love being able to be here. We have said more than once, we've looked at each other and like, we're working right now. Like, this is our job, is to come and to spend time with you. I mean, it's incredible, and we are loving it. I want to just, first of all, thank the team. Can we just thank the team? The team that led here, but the team that set up, the team way in the back, that they don't want you to talk to them, okay? They're doing their work out in the lobby and everything that has gone together. Oh, you want me to hold it up higher? Yeah. What? Not, don't hold the bottom? Okay, what about? So, no, we got a chance to hang out with the team on Friday night at the all-team meeting, and it's just so incredible, and if you are not a part of the team, I want to invite you to jump in and to be a part of this group of people who are, first of all, finding connection and family with one another, but creating family. For so many people and making a difference here in London. So I just appreciate you. I want to also welcome somebody who you may or may not know, a couple people. Gethin and Bex are over here. Sounds like you do know them. So they go back, they are like, when you track the story of Liberty Church, like they're in every part of it. All the good parts, and it's awesome. So they live in Wales, and they are directors of Children's Cup in Eswatini, and they have been a part of planting when we were planting the seeds for Liberty London. This was Liberty Church London. They were a part of that, part of Liberty Church New York, and it's just incredible. You know, I think what's so significant, and we may sometimes overlook it in our own lives, is that sometimes we don't necessarily see the fruit of our efforts in the moment. Sometimes our investment in people, our investment in the work, God is going to use that, and he starts to use that, and that just continues on throughout our lives. And we look back, and almost in the rearview mirror, it's like, wow, everywhere that God has led us, he has used us, and he has brought the fruit. And I just want to, if we just join me in saying thank you to them for their faithfulness to the ministry. And I also just want to honor Johnny and Tasha. Can you just get the loudest for Johnny and Tosh? Man, we love them, and I have been, this is my second time here, and every time I just get so inspired just spending time with you guys, because you've got vision, you have got love and passion for this city, for this people, and it's just great to have people who are just fast friends, and that's how we feel. We have just a great time every time we're here, and we just believe in you. Believe in all that you're doing, and just appreciate you. And so you guys are incredibly blessed to have friends and pastors and community leaders like these guys. So one more time. So hey, across the Liberty Church ecosystem, we have been in a message series called Defining Moments. Does this look unnatural? Do I look natural holding the mic like this? It feels really weird. Is this hold like this? I usually have like a head thing. Can we just tape it? Yeah. All right. Sorry, those of you who are on live stream. What was I saying? Oh, so we're in this new message series called Defining Moments. And what we're doing is we're talking about how encountering Jesus is often, we see it throughout the Bible, we experience it in our own lives, it becomes the defining moment. It's when everything changes, when we really encounter and meet the person of Jesus. And today what we're going to talk about is the life-defining love that we meet, that we encounter, that we see in him. But love, is like one of those things that's kind of like this nebulous idea, right? Like if we talk about love, we can talk about loving pizza. How many love pizza? For the first time in my life, I ate a piece of pizza with corn on it. You're like, what do you mean? That's like a normal thing here. Yeah. I love it. I love it. I love it, right? So sometimes we talk about things like pizza that we love. And I love my wife. And both of them. And yeah. But like love is that kind of thing that, it's something that we'll all define differently. To some extent, like love is a thing that we know it when we see it, but it's also true that we can miss it even when it's right in front of us. Look, if I look familiar to you, it's probably because you recognize me from the Amazon Prime TV series Big Dogs. You probably watched that. Anyone? No? Yeah, I mean, it's okay. You could. I'll sign autographs later. It's a cop show, kind of in the order of Law and Order. Do you have Law and Order here? Yeah, and it is same director actually, and but it's a mini series, and the whole story of Big Dogs is that there is this cab driver named Emir, who was an immigrant to America from Syria. And he was a big dog in this underground crime syndicate until he was murdered by some bigger dogs. In come the police to be the biggest dogs, as the story goes. Well, I played Emir, the dead cabbie. And I was pretty excellent in it. I stayed in character the entire time. I knew all of my lines. I never forgot any of my lines whatsoever. And it was really, honestly, it was a ton of fun. And I hesitate a little bit to tell the story because some people are like really trying to get in TV and to get into roles. And for me, this just kind of like literally happened because I was in the right place at the right time. I was in a coffee shop, and I used to work from this coffee shop where my wife was working at the time, and I was working there, and this crew came in, and they were scouting coffee shops for a scene for this TV series, and they saw me, and the casting director saw me there, and thought to herself, man, I'd really like to see that guy dead. And so they hired me right then to be Emir, and I was a featured extra. So I don't know if you've ever been on a TV show, but like extras, that's cute. They are over there. But the featured extras, I mean, I signed my SAG card, and so as far as the actors, they thought I was a real actor, which was totally great because I got a handler who they would like announce that I'm walking somewhere, and they would walk with me. I found the whole thing hysterical, right? So we got there in the morning. I was there in the morning early, and I go through the wardrobe and I go through the makeup, and I get to eat the special food. So they also saw Carrie, and they're like, wow, she's gorgeous. We want her in this too, but not as a featured extra. I'm just saying, so she was over in the galley, right? And then I was with the others. And so I was, so I went through all of this, and then, it was early in the morning, and so we go out there, and they put me in a meeting. I'm hobnobbing with the actors and the crew and the director and all these things. But it's not occurring to me. I'm having a great time. Like, to me, I love this. I actually went to school. I started before I felt called into ministry. I was going into film. I was going to go into to writing and directing film. So this was like a dream come true for me, right? For this one day, this one little blip of a day. And so I'm eating it all up. I'm soaking it all up, but I'm never thinking about, wait a second, in a minute, you got to play a dead guy in this TV show. I mean, you're thinking like, okay, lay there, right? There's more to it than that. So they put me in position, and I lay down on the cement, and I'm down there, and I'm just kind of just hanging out and enjoying it, and then all of a sudden the director he yells positions, and it hits me all of a sudden. this is really hysterical that I'm even doing this, right? That I'm here in this moment. And so I start to chuckle. And then I realize that means the cameras are going to roll, right? So now I'm like, dude, you got to pull it together, right? So I'm like I'm this dead guy who's just smiling ear to ear because I'm just so happy to be where I am. And I'm like trying to get it down. And then he yells out sound, right? And so now the cameras are rolling the sound. They yell back rolling. So now we know what's happening, right? And so I pull it in. And then I think to myself, wait a second. Eyes open or closed. How am I going to do this? This is my moment. How am I going to do this? They put the sheet over me, right? Because it's like I was dead, and they had already found me dead. So they put the sheet over me, and I'm under there, and my eyes are open, and I'm closed, and I'm like, do it this way, do it this way. And I didn't think it through, right? The director gave me no direction because he figured, all right, this guy is a SAG card holding actor. He knows what to do here, right? And so I'm thinking about it, and he goes, ready, and I'm thinking to myself, real quick, I got seconds to decide because look, if my eyes are closed, my eyes are closed the rest of the day. If my eyes are open, I got to keep them open the rest of the day. Like, how am I going to do this without blinking, right? So I start to panic. He pulls the sheet back, and just as I see the sheet starting to move, I just close my eyes real quick, and that was it. My eyes were now closed the rest of the day. And I kind of regret it. I kind of wish I went with eyes open in retrospect. So it goes. Now, if you're playing a dead guy in a TV show and you choose to close your eyes, well, you got to keep your eyes closed the rest of the time. You can't decide later to open up your eyes, right? But in real life, there's this really great benefit to being alive. It's that you always have the freedom to open your eyes, to see things that maybe you have been previously closing your eyes to see things that you may have been previously shutting out. Of course, that's obviously true physically, but it's also true spiritually. If our eyes are closed, we always have a choice. We can keep them closed. We can just decide I'm not going to consider anything new, or we can choose to open our eyes at any time and see life, see ourselves, see God in a whole new way. Throughout Jesus' time on earth, he was constantly running into people who had their eyes closed spiritually, who were unwilling to see things in a new way. The Gospel of Luke tells us about one such person. He calls him an expert. Luke is, so if you're not familiar, the Gospel of Luke is one of 4 biographies that kind of kick off the New Testament section of the Bible. And they're biographies about Jesus. Luke is unique in that Luke never met Jesus personally, but what he did was his life was changed when somebody told him about Jesus. He was a physician, educated man, but his eyes were opened in that encounter that he had with a guy named Paul, the Apostle Paul. And it was after that Luke went on this journey for himself. He became one of the most important historians of all of Christian history, as he went around interviewing people who had been with Jesus, who had heard what Jesus said firsthand, and saw what Jesus did with their own eyes. And he wrote it all down in the Gospel of Luke. And he tells us about this one encounter that we have with Jesus and this man who is an expert in religion. And this is what he says. He says, on one occasion, an expert in the law stood up to test Jesus. Teacher, he asked, what must I do to inherit eternal life? Now, Luke tells us something interesting about this guy. He calls him this expert. And how many know some experts in their life? They're wonderful people, right? But the thing about experts is that sometimes they think they know it already, and so they don't think they need to learn anymore. Anybody know what I mean? Right? So like Luke is suggesting that somewhere along the line, this guy, he was at some point he was a lover of the law of God. He wanted to learn it, he wanted to know it, but at some point he went from wanting to learn it all to believing that he knew it all. And so he asked Jesus a question, which sounds like a really good question, except you've got to look at the motive, right? Luke says that he asked this question in order to do what? To test Jesus, not to learn from Jesus, but to test him. And so he asked this really good question. He says, what do I need to do to be right with God? If you don't have to raise your hand, but maybe you've wondered that question. What do I have to do for sure to know that I'm right with God? Well, Jesus replied this way. He said, what is written in the law? How do you read it? In other words, you're the expert. You tell me. And the man answered this. He said, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, with all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. Notice the spelling. You like that? I use Bible Gateway, NIV UK. If you were here, thank you very much. Thank you. That's cross-cultural ministry. Cross-cultural ministry, yeah. On Friday night, we had an alt-team meeting, and we had it was a spelling bee type thing, and they put up words from the Bible, and everybody had to spell them. And it was fine. They were easy. There were things like Noah, Adam, right? All of this, all the way along. It gets up to me, and the word was baptize, which everyone west of here knows ends in I-Z-E. But everyone here knows it ends in I-S-E. I spelled it wrong, and I lost. But I feel like I was scammed. Anyway, so this time I used the NIV UK to make sure that I got the spelling right. N-E-I-G-H-B-O-U-R. What was my point? Love your neighbor as yourself. This is the right answer. The man knows the right answer. He's an expert. I mean, everything he says, all of this, love the Lord your God and love you, these were all direct quotes from the Old Testament part of the Bible. Love is the answer. Jesus replied this. He said, you have answered correctly. Do this and you will live. There were two great men born in Liverpool. Johnny's one of them. The other one said, all you need is love, right? That's what Jesus is saying right here. He's quoting John Lennon. Love God and love people. This is what God has been saying for thousands of years. Love is the answer. God and people is the application. Are you with me? So Jesus says, yep, you got it. And then I imagine this pause, right? Imagine there's like this pause right in this section right here. Yep, you've answered correctly. So just do this and you will live. It's like Jesus was saying, yeah, right on. And if you would actually do this, you would be right with God. You'll experience a God-connected life here and now. You'll live with God for eternity. So the expert gets what Jesus is saying there. It's like, my answer is right, but I'm not actually applying this right. And so he says, Luke tells us that the man does this. It says the man wanted to justify himself. And so he asked Jesus, well, then who is my neighbor? So to justify himself, he wanted to prove himself right? So like there are some people in the world who need to be right, and there are some people in the world who want to get it right. And there's a big difference. Because if we need to be right, then we're always setting out to prove ourselves right. If we're people who just want to get it right, then we're always seeking to learn what's right. And so we see in this man that what happens when we're trying to prove ourselves right, we start asking the wrong questions. So this man asks, who is my neighbor? He kind of misunderstood all of what's going on here, because it sounds like he's trying to learn, but what he's really doing is he's saying, hey, what's the cap on my responsibility here? He wants to shrink his world. Who do I actually have to love? He should have been asking, what does it look like to love my neighbor? Because love that's the action in what Jesus is telling him. That's the right answer. It's to love your neighbor. Love is what Jesus is saying is the path toward eternal life. But the man's asking, well, who can I exclude? So Jesus responds to the man's question by telling him a parable, and it's one that you've probably heard before. In this parable, Jesus does define neighbor for this man, but really even more than that, he defines love. And Luke tells us that Jesus tells the story this way. It says, in reply, Jesus said, a man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho when he was attacked by robbers. They stripped him of his clothes, beat him, and went away, leaving him half dead. A priest happened to be going down the same road, and when he saw the man, he passed by on the other side. So too a Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, passed by on the other side. Now, in both cases, I think you've probably heard this before, but it's important to get that, like, these guys, like, not stopping to help this guy, it made some sense. Because it would have rendered both of them unclean, unfit to be able to do their job in the temple. So it's like shocking on one hand that people who love God don't love this person in need, but on the other hand, they had their reasons. A Samaritan, however, Jesus said, as he traveled, came where the man was, and when he saw him, he took pity on him. Now, Samaritans and Jews hated each other. There was all kinds of, historic and ethnic and religious motivations behind the racism that they had between each other. And so it's very interesting that Jesus uses this Samaritan man as the hero of the story, because for everyone listening to him tell the story, the Samaritans were the villains. But what we need to see here is that Jesus is teaching us, here's what happened. The person you least expect, he was the one who best demonstrated real love to this man who was in need. Jesus says, he went to him and bandaged his wounds, and pouring on oil and wine, he put the man on his own donkey and brought him to an inn and took care of him. The next day he took out 2 denarii, that's 2 full days' worth of his wages, and he gave them to the innkeeper. Look after him, he said, and when I return, I'll reimburse you with any expense that you may have. And then after saying all this, telling the story, he circles back to the expert and he asks him this. He says, so which of these 3 do you think was a neighbor to this man who fell into the hands of robbers? And the expert in the law, he got it, he was listening. He said, well, the one who had mercy on him. And Jesus ends by saying, go and do likewise. Now, in this parable, I see, as I read this, I think Jesus challenges us, and he challenges me, at least, to open my eyes to see some things in a way that maybe I haven't seen them before. To open my eyes to see at least 3 things in particular. To see who my neighbors really are. To see what love really looks like. And also to see who I really am in this story. So, number one, I think that we see, you can go one by one, that Jesus invites me to see who my neighbors really are. It's interesting to me that we know the story as the story of the Good Samaritan, right? If you look in your Bible, it probably has that line up there, the Good Samaritan. But Jesus never calls this Samaritan good. Like, that's not in the Bible anywhere. History has looked at this Samaritan's actions, and society, we even have it like written into our laws, the Good Samaritan law. Like we have this kind of term, this idea in our vernacular, but Jesus never offers any assessment about this man's character, which suggests to me that you don't have to be a remarkably good person to treat your fellow humans like your neighbor. We simply have to open our eyes to see their need. Jesus is saying that, look, my neighbors are the people all around me who need mercy. They're the people who are not like me, just like the people who are like me. They're the people who I'm tempted to walk by. They're the people that are messy. They're the broken ones. They're the ones that no one expects me to go to help, to go out of my way for. They're the people in my family. They're the people in my church. They're the people in my neighborhood, in my city. Your neighbors are all of your fellow humans. Secondly, Jesus wants me to see what love looks like. what it looks like to love. In this parable, Jesus paints this very vivid picture, right? As he talks about what this Samaritan does for this man in need. He says that he sees the man in need. He takes pity on him. He went out of his way to go to the man. He bandaged the wounds, stopped his bleeding. He poured on healing oil and wine. He picked the man up out of the situation that he was in. He brought him to a place where he could find rest and be safe. He took care of him. He paid the innkeeper. He brought someone else in on this man's healing and paid for it, and even promised to return and to reward that guy who helped out. Now, I hate to admit it, right? But I'm not even close to that level of loving. I don't know about you guys. Like the expert in the law asked, and who is my neighbor? And I think I would have asked, like, how much do I really have to love my neighbor? Like, when is it enough? Let's say I agree to not walk by, like the priest and the Levite. Let's say I agree to do that. I agree to not walk by, and let's say that I'm even going to go out of my way and ask the person their story. That's pretty great, right? Is it enough? Jesus is saying, well, love also makes an effort to stop the bleeding in their lives. Was that enough? Like, well, love also gives what can bring healing to the person. Okay, but is that enough? Well, love also works to pick them up out of the situation that they're in. Love also helps to bring them to a place where they're safe and they're not going to experience that hurt again. Love also gets personally involved in their healing. Love also brings others in and to help that person. Love also sacrifices what's mine in order to give them what they need to get back on their feet. Love also promises to never abandon. When does love draw the line? Jesus is showing that, look, love is limitless. It's compassionate. It's personal. It's selfless. It's sacrificing. It's generous. Do this. If you really do this, you will live and you will be life-giving. Now, I'm just being honest. I don't love to that level. This is the kind of love that Jesus calls for. It's the kind of love that I want. I want to love like this. But this is a love that I fall short of often. It's a love that I need God for. And I think this is the most important thing that Jesus is showing us in this story, is that Jesus wants me to open my eyes to see who I really am in this story. We aren't the Samaritan in this story. I love to read myself as the hero into every story. We aren't the Samaritan. But you know what else? We're not the priest or the Levite, because sometimes we also read ourselves as the villain in the story. We're the ones who have been beaten up by sin and left for dead. We're the ones in the ditch in this story. We're the ones who have been robbed of a God-connected life that we were created to know. You see, here's the thing about this story and the thing about sin. Sin is this biblical word, right? It means just literally to miss the mark. Originally, it wasn't even a religious term. It was an archery term, right? And it was a term that Bible writers thought, all right, well, how can I describe what happens when the life that we aim to live goes off even a little bit from the target? Well, let's use this word sin, because we miss the mark. Like, you and I have been created to live God-connected lives. We were created to know God, to really actually know and be connected to God, to live without any shame in our lives. Like the way that you were intended to live was to live trusting God completely, following His lead in everything, flourishing in every part of your life. But none of us experience that kind of life fully. When we hear the word sin, it may make us react in various ways because of the way that it's been communicated. We might roll our eyes at it. We might even kind of like feel self-defensive about it. We might argue about what is a sin and what isn't a sin. But really, none of that matters. Because in big ways and in small ways, all of us have found ourselves disconnected from God. We've all, in some way, we've found ourselves knocked off course. We've all, in some way, found ourselves trying to determine what is right and what is wrong and pursuing things that just don't satisfy. That's the life that sin leaves us. And the worst part is that there's nothing that we can do about it. We can't fix it. Sin has knocked us off course, and just like an arrow can't change its own trajectory, there's nothing that we can do to correct ourselves from an eternity moving separated from God. And that's where the incredible, life-defining love of Jesus comes in. He's the one who saw us beaten up, helpless, left for dead. Because of his great love, he's the one who went out of his way, who came to us to rescue us. The Bible says that God demonstrates his own love for us in this, that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. Through his death and resurrection, he stopped the bleeding in our lives. He cut off sin's ability to condemn us. But more than that, he pours out his Spirit on us to bring real healing to our souls, to our minds, to our hearts. He picks us up to redeem our story, to put us back on track to the life that we were created to live. He brings us into the safety of a relationship with him. He gave up his life so that we could experience the kind of life that he had in mind for us. And he promises that he will never, ever abandon us. And when we open our eyes to see his love for us, the love we need, the love he gives, it will become the defining moment of your life. 1 John 4:19 says this: we love because he first loved us. Meaning, when we will receive the love that he has for us, that's when we will find growing within us the ability to love our neighbors, to love others with the same kind of compassion and selflessness and sacrifice that he has shown to us. When we are transformed by his love, we will live out a transforming love in our world. So what do we do with this? Well, I don't want to leave today without just giving you an opportunity to respond to the love that Jesus has for you. But it's a deeply personal thing. And so I just want to ask if we could all just bow our heads in this moment and just let's make this into a sacred space. This morning, if you are a follower of Jesus, you've put your trust in him, you're saved. Jesus has saved you and you have received that. But maybe you would say, and you don't have to tell me, but maybe you would say that you've closed your eyes to your neighbor. Maybe you can think of people, maybe kinds of people, that you've just stopped seeing. That your love falls short. Maybe you've closed your eyes to what it really means to love selflessly and sacrificially. If that's you, I stand with you. I wonder if you to pray with me. Jesus, I pray that you would renew our understanding of your love. I Pray that you would help us to see others with your eyes. Pray that you would give us the courage to love others like you have loved us. If that's you today, I just want to give you a moment to allow God to bring someone to mind. And let the love that He has for you move you to express that love to that person this week. Lastly, I just want to say, maybe you're here today and you've never opened your heart to receive the love of Jesus. This could be your defining moment. Recognizing that apart from Him, you are that person left for dead. But the love that He has demonstrated for you will bring healing and wholeness in your life. And you would say, I'm ready to open my heart to receive that. If that's you today, I want to pray with you. And I'm not going to ask you to stand. I'm not even going to ask you to raise your hand. But I want to invite you to pray with me. And if you're a follower of Jesus, would you pray with me as well so none of us have to pray alone? Jesus, thank you for not giving up on me, for seeing me, for coming to earth and dying for me, raising from the dead, defeating sin and death. I believe in you. Put my trust in you. I receive your love. Thank you. Because of your love, I know I am forgiven. I am being healed. I will be transformed.